Have you ever known exactly the next step that you're going to take, only you weren't doing it? Maybe it's an email that you need to send or a difficult conversation that you need to lean into. Maybe it's a decision that you need to make, something that God has placed on your heart and you know you need to do it. You're not sitting there thinking, I'm terrified. Instead, you're thinking of everything else that you need to do. You're researching more, you're overthinking, you're trying to just hit one more website that might tell you the right thing to do. You're cleaning your office, you're emptying out your refrigerator, you're very busy. You're just not doing that one thing that you know you're supposed to be doing. And that's what I want to talk about today because sometimes we don't recognize fear by how it feels. We recognize it by the things we avoid. And the question becomes, how do I recognize when fear is starting to influence me? And how do I move forward without trying to make myself fearless? When we think about fear, what we expect is that unmistakable feeling of being scared. But we forget to look at what the root cause is beneath some of our avoiding tendencies. And we think we just need one more podcast. We need to read one more book. We need to talk to one more expert or take one more class. And that's not what we need at all. Now, that doesn't automatically mean that you're afraid, because sometimes wisdom is waiting another day or another week. Sometimes you really do need a little bit more research. Sometimes there's a little bit more planning and prep that would be very helpful in your journey. But sometimes what we're avoiding is keeping us safe from something that makes us feel vulnerable. Maybe you've been rewriting your sales page for 3 weeks because it feels safer to keep rewriting than to actually present your offer to someone. Or maybe you keep researching a business idea because that feels safer than actually sharing it. And this is something I really want you to hear. Just because you feel fear or you start to acknowledge that fear exists doesn't mean that you're headed down the wrong path. It's very easy to assume that if God has called us to something, He's going to make us confident and self assured, and He's going to remove any doubt or fear. But that's not what Scripture teaches. In John 16:33, Jesus told His disciples, "You will have suffering. Be courageous." Jesus didn't promise that following Him would always mean that our feelings align with the actions that we need to take. He didn't promise that our way would always be easy. So our goal doesn't need to be manufacturing fearlessness and trying to muster courage inside of ourselves. The better goal then becomes discerning what's fear and when I need to move forward anyway. Ask yourself if fear is getting a vote it was never entitled to have, and if you're allowing fear to make decisions for you on your behalf. Sometimes recognizing that your avoidance can be fear can tell you some very helpful things. It can tell you, this thing really matters to me. This is important to me. It can remind you that we don't always know what's going to happen next. We can't always see the full plan ahead of you. And those are things that are very important to recognize and to acknowledge. But remember that fear does not get to decide what you do next. There's another side to this that's worthy of notice. Not every hesitation is fear. Sometimes we do need to wait. Sometimes we do need to slow down or take a different tact or look at things from a different angle. Those are all healthy strategies to building what God has called you to build. I'm not encouraging you to label every uncomfortable feeling as fear and try to push through it in your own strength. The goal is discernment. I personally find it really helpful to ask myself, is this hesitation giving me information that I really need to look at? Or am I allowing this discomfort to rule my actions? Because I can feel afraid and continue to walk in obedience to God. I can feel uncertain and still take the next step. When it's fear that starts spurring that uncertainty, I found it's really helpful to return to your anchor and start looking at things that you already know to be true. What does Scripture say about this? What do you know that your responsibility already is? What have you already discerned in prayer? What has wise counsel already helped you see? And why did you even feel called to make this move in the first place? Why is it important to you? What do you already know to be true, even if you don't know how everything is going to pan out? It's Isaiah 43:2 that says, "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and the rivers will not overwhelm you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be scorched, and the flame will not burn you." Notice that God doesn't say there won't be water. He doesn't say that there won't be fire. What he says is that his presence will be with you. Your anchor may not take your fear away, but it will help remind you of what's true so that you can stay focused on your path. If you find that there's something that you're hesitating about, I find that there's 4 actions that are very, very helpful. First, name your next step. What's the next right step you know you need to take? You don't have to see the whole plan. You don't have to have everything figured out. You don't have to peer far into the future or ask God to give you every single answer. What is the very next step that he's asking you to take? Next, name the fear. What are you afraid that's going to happen if you do this next step? Maybe you think you're going to get it wrong, or that your business isn't going to grow, or that you're going to fail, or look like someone who doesn't know what they're doing. I found that saying the fear out loud and calling fear fear starts to change things for me. It helps me see them in a different light and know that I can conquer them, because fear isn't from God, and you don't have to try to keep finding ways to explain it away. The third step is to return to what's true. What remains true regardless of how this next step turns out? If you do this thing, what's unchangeable? What do you already know to be true? Fear can make the unknown feel enormous, but your anchor can remind you that the unknown is not the only thing that's true. And the fourth step is to take that next step, to do the thing. Send the email. Send someone a text message and say, "Can we find time to talk?" You don't have to have the whole conversation mapped out or practice until you have it perfect in your mind. Maybe you need to schedule your next post. It's a blog post or a video, social media post, whatever it is, schedule it. Get it on the books or ask for help. Find the person that you need to talk to and get some clarity around it. Then take the next step that's going to move you forward. The next time you find yourself stuck, you don't have to spend time wondering, why can't I just make myself more confident? Try this instead. Name the step. Name the fear, remember what's true, and then take the step. You don't need to become fearless to take your next move. You don't have to have every next step figured out. You don't have to know the whole path or even have the whole roadmap. And you don't need to condemn yourself because fear showed up. You can acknowledge it, bring it honestly before God. You can listen to see if there's anything that you genuinely need to learn from the occurrence of fear, and then refuse to give fear the authority that it doesn't deserve. Courage often looks like saying, "Yes, Lord. Even when I'm afraid, I'll decide to follow you anyway." I would love to hear from you in the comments. When you start to feel that hesitation, what steps do you do to avoid what you know you should be doing? Do you procrastinate, or like me, do you overthink? Or do everything on your list beside the very thing that you know you need to do? And then I'd love for you to tell me your next step. What is that next step that you know you need to take? And if you know another Christian woman who's trying to faithfully lead or build or step into the calling that God has placed on her life, share this video with her. And subscribe if you want to keep having conversations about faith, leadership, and the inner work that goes on for Christian women entrepreneurs like us. Together we can faithfully build what God is entrusting to us. I'll see you next time.